All right, welcome to Riding Shotgun with Tupper and with Alphaba, who's running along today. I don't know if this is a mistake or not. I don't know how muddy it might be down here. I might regret it, but she really wants to go, and so what the heck, let's give it a shot. Wow. It is Tuesday. I just got off the phone with Brad Underwood, a teleconference with a handful of media folks from Brad's in New York. I'm back here in central Illinois. None of the regular media people went out there. I think Rob McCauley from whatever Rob represents was going to go out there. He was telling me his aunt lives in Queens, I believe, and he was going to do double duty, cover the Illini and look in on his aunt. And good for you, Rob. And I think Craig Choate from WCIA might have been going too, but really nobody else going. I know Scott Ritchie from the News Gazette wasn't going, and the other media folks who you would say would be regulars on the beat not going. And so anyhow, they're out there, and of course, since we spoke last, a couple things have happened. One, they well, let's just go to the final regular season game. They beat Rutgers in New Jersey. A victory that I would call resourceful on a day when their leading scorer, LaRon Black, limited to 17 minutes because of foul trouble, and on a day when their second leading scorer, Trent Frazier, was not hitting his shots. I think he was 3 of 10. So how are you going to win your first, get your first road win of the season? Well, you're going to do it if your bench steps up and performs at a great level, and that's what happened. Michael Finke, terrific, 19 points. Aaron Jordan, outstanding, gave him another 15. DeMonte Williams, 8 rebounds. And then they continue to get really good play from Te'Jon Lucas, and we'll talk about Te'Jon in a minute, but that moves them on to the Big Ten tournament in Madison Square Garden, which begins tomorrow, Wednesday, 4:30 against Iowa. And you know, that's in the first meeting against Iowa. The thing a couple things. Illinois up by 20 in the first half. They started to lose their grip though before halftime. A lot of people say, well, they blew the lead in the second half. It really started in the first half. That lead went from 20 to 13 by halftime, and Iowa went into the locker room feeling pretty good about itself. And the other thing to remember is that was one of those games when Te'Jon Lucas was suspended. And at the time, you know, I'll just speak for myself. I didn't look at Te'Jon the way I look at him now. In fact, when he came back from suspension, I wondered if he'd play for Illinois again. It just, he was in the doghouse. You know, you get in the coach's doghouse when you get suspended. Get out of there. And he wasn't playing great, you know, and he's a small guard who can't shoot, right? But he has sort of reinvented himself. First of all, he came back, and when we talked to him after he got back from his suspension, he said, you know, when it's almost taken from you is when you realize how important it is to you. And he's not the first person to have come back from something like that with a renewed sense of commitment and appreciation and effort and energy. And when you look at him now, his minutes have become so important defensively. Rebounding, he's really become a good rebounding guard. He's figured out a way to score without using his jump shot, although he did have the one game, you know, he's hit a couple, but he's learned that really reaching, swooping kind of a layup that is, you know, pretty much impossible to block, and he gets it up and in, and he's used that as a weapon. He's gotten to the line. I think he's been a little better free throw shooter here during this stretch, but I would say it's his defensive sort of tenacity that's really impressed me and made me look at him now as a valued guy, and he may be a key guy when they play Iowa, because we know the problems Illinois had containing Bohannon last time. You know, Bohannon's one of those. There's a few of those shooters in the league. Dakota Mathias and Purdue's another one, and man, you can't let those guys get free. And And Tijon seems to have a stick-to-itiveness to him right now in the defensive end, and I just look at him a lot differently. He's an important guy going into the Big Ten tournament. As is, I know we're all influenced a little bit by the most recent game. So, but don't you look at the bench a bit differently right now with the return of Finke? I don't expect Finke to get 19 points every time out, don't get me wrong. But it's a reminder of there is value in a 6'10" guy that can hit a shot. And again, another person who missed games, 4 games with a concussion. Played a little bit when he came back against Purdue. But a guy who may be rejuvenated here a little bit, might physically be a little bit rested and fresh, might also be a guy that, hey, I don't want to go out, as a guy who isn't getting to contribute. I want to contribute in some way, and I think Brad's been pretty consistent. If you play well, you're gonna get minutes, and Aaron Jordan the same way. Aaron Jordan, I mean, he's a good rebounding guard. He moves around and does some things. When he gets open, he's got to make threes, and he certainly did that the other day. And what are you looking at? Oh, my dog's looking over there like I don't see any deer. All right. And DeMonte Williams, 8 rebounds the other day. So we go into the Big Ten tournament. Look, Illinois got a monumental mountain to climb. They got to get by Iowa. It'd be nice to win one. You talk about getting to Sunday. Brad packed all these clothes. Ever the optimist. Good for him. That's what he should do, to send that message to his team. But I like Purdue to win this tournament. I've liked Purdue all season. Talked to you about them, about how the problems they present because of their size and their three-point shooting ability. And, when we saw Purdue last week, we saw Carson Edwards at his very, very best. That kid was tougher than nails, scored 40, was hitting shots all over the place. He was amazing. Michigan State, I like Michigan State, don't get me wrong. There's a lot going on around that team. They seem to have temporarily, at least, gotten cleared up the Miles Bridges allegations. He had to pay a $40 fine for a portion of a meal that I believe his mom got, and that was, according to their investigation, they're satisfied that was it, so he apparently will play. It has to be disruptive, and going into the Big Ten, the NCAA tournament, which Selection Sunday is a week from this Sunday. That's going to be so much of the conversation, and we have no idea what's going to happen between now and then. That's a long time. If the FBI has more documents they want to get out, if there are any schools who, obviously Arizona, with their situation, Sean Miller did not coach in that game the other night against Oregon, and their player played. But I mean, our program's going to take a look and say, I don't want to risk it. We're going to put him on administrative leave until this is cleared up more. We're going to sit this guy. I don't know. It looks right now like I don't see any indications of anybody doing that, but who knows how all of this will shake out. And you know what? It's going to affect recruiting. And it may affect it in a positive way for Illinois, because Illinois is very much involved in Tevian Jones from California, the 6'6" wing player, 4-star player, really nice player. Arizona had offered him. He was certainly looking at Arizona. If you want to pick a program that's had more recent NCAA tournament success, more recent national success, you're obviously going to pick Arizona. But now, with Sean Miller's situation looking so uncertain, don't get run over. You would think that he'd really have to look at Arizona in a more negative light with the uncertainty around that program. And so I think it's a kid Illinois really got a chance to get, and we know that right now recruiting's going to be the name of the game. I know Brad was over, I believe, watching Francis Okoro from Normal West, and hey, by the way, there could be some things happen there. People tell me that his age is such that according to IHSA rules, he would be ineligible to play the second semester next year. Now, if that is true, and I don't know 100% that it is, but if that is true, why would you want to do that if you're him? I mean, you don't want to sit out the best part of your senior season. So could he graduate, let's say, by August and reclassify and be eligible for next year? I think it's probably Illinois and Purdue on him right now. He's not a scorer per se, but he's a legit bigger body guy who can rebound and defend and grow into, who knows what he'll grow into. So I think he becomes a guy that could be a terrific fit for them if they could get him. So, I mean, there's a lot going on there right now. The scandal in college basketball certainly could affect recruiting on some kids. We will see. I don't know how it's going to shake out on some of the other people they're involved with, like Ramey. You know, we'll see how that. I think Illinois will be in that to the end, but you know, then we'll see where he wants to go. But the fact that they're in with him so much has, I think, has caused them to pull off of a couple of other people, so we'll see how all that goes. Then spring football starts Tuesday. This next Tuesday, a week from today, at 7 in the morning. Holy moly, I'll be over there for that. Might have to do riding shotgun from football. I think they're going to practice in Memorial Stadium when they can. Lovey is not a fan of the indoor facility. You know, the indoor facility becomes an option when it's crazy weather, lightning, driving rain, goofy wind. Obviously, if it's snow or ice. But I think otherwise they're going to be inside. The practice fields are not available to them right now. They've got the Performance Center construction going on kind of right there. So it looks like they're going to have 12 practices and then 3 separate dates in which they're going to hold meetings, walkthroughs, more mental practices, as Lovey likes to call them sometimes. Rather than a spring game, it'll be a concluding final open to the public practice on a Saturday at noon. I think the most interesting dynamic in spring football becomes that between new offensive coordinator Rod Smith and the only incumbent quarterback, Cam Thomas. Does Rod Smith, during the course of this spring, grow to like this kid, both personally and to view him as, you know what, I think this guy can win football games for us? Or does he not see that? You know, Garrick McGee was really big on him. That doesn't mean that Rod Smith will be. And at the same time, you know, Rod's apparently talking to Brandon Dawkins, who's a potential fifth-year grad transfer quarterback from Arizona who was with him and could play immediately. Now, there's a guy who's physically mature, has some miles on the treads in terms of, you know, big-time college experience, and who has done it in Rod's system, and that might be a very attractive bridge for 1 year while you continue to let Cam Thomas develop, while you hopefully are able to continue, are able to allow incoming freshmen to develop, like Coran Taylor and like MJ Rivers, and then the kid they signed out west as well. So, you know, I mean, you don't want to play. Ideally, look, you don't want to play true freshman. And I know Cam Thomas is no longer a true freshman, but how much experience has he had? He's got 2 starts and 2 other games in which he got in there and didn't show that much. I mean, I'd say he did show the potential. I thought he looked terrific running the ball. He's a great athlete. It looks like he's got a strong arm, but you know, he was a little overwhelmed by it all at times. And you know, if you could get a guy to come in there, because I think it's important that Lovey wins some games this year, you know, and I think it's really important not only from the mental health of fans and media who just want to see him do better. I think it's important from recruiting. You know, I think they've done a pretty good job of getting kids without having presented kids evidence of success on the field. And it's time to get that. It's time to say, look what Bobby Roundtree did in winning these football games, or look what Bennett Williams did in winning these football games, or Rayvon Bonner, or Ricky Smalling, whoever. Look what we're teaching them is working. there needs to be some evidence of that in order to dig in a little deeper in recruiting. And I really like the early evidence from this staff that they're going to maybe be able to make some inroads there. You know, Thad Ward is kind of becoming a recruiting superstar. I'm anxious to see what Corey Patterson can do down in St. Louis. We're anxious to see what their new defensive line coach can do, either in California, where he's recruited for Cal and USC, or been involved in the recruiting efforts of Cal and USC, or in Florida, where he's from. He's from Tampa. So, you know, there's some interesting things going on there once spring practice begins, and it begins a week from today, next Tuesday at 7 in the morning. So, Illinois, Iowa, tomorrow, 4:30 Central Time, Big Ten tournament. All the early games are on the Big Ten Network, and if they win, they come back and play Michigan. Michigan's seeded 5th. Nebraska's seeded 4th. Am I the only one that thinks that's backwards? Michigan's a better team than Nebraska. I don't like Illinois' chances to beat Michigan if they were to get to that game. I do like Illinois' chances to beat Nebraska if they get to that game. But the good thing is, if you could beat Iowa and if you could pull the upset, then Nebraska might be there waiting for you. And then that would be awfully fun to make it to, what would that be, Saturday for the semifinals against Michigan State. You know, that'd be fun, even if you got your fannies whipped. Anyhow, it's an exciting time of the year. I'm probably like the rest of you. I wish there was an NCAA carrot dangling over here, and I guess you could say there is if they win out, but I don't think that's realistic to win 5 games in 5 days. As Brad pointed out, that would be 9 games in 14 days they would have played. At some point along that road, fatigue has to become an issue, I would think. But, you know, we'll see. So anyhow, have a great weekend. Hope you enjoy watching the tournament. And then remember, when the Big Ten tournament ends, it's not Selection Sunday. We all got to wait another week for that to come around. Appreciate it. Now I'll get in here and find out how muddy my dog is. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.